First of all, 1 part amaretto, 1 part blue curacao, 2 parts cranberry juice, 2 parts pineapple juice, 1 part Southern Comfort. Shake, don't stir. And this is the bathwater cocktail, created for and named after the so-called Bath and Bottle Party, the most notorious cocktail party in British history.
It happened in a heat wave at the height of the social season on the evening of Friday the 13th of July, 1928. The hosts, Babe Plunkett Green, Elizabeth Punsonby, Edward Gaythorne Hardy, and Brian Howard. The venue, St George's Swimming Baths, Buckingham Palace Road, Belgravia. The Daily Express gossiped about the edgy Negro jazz band, and costumes of the most dazzling kinds and colours. Even the waiters wore bathing suits as they served the bathwater cocktail. This was the party that would come to symbolise an era, and if you've ever been to a nightclub, drunk a cocktail or taken drugs, then you too have been shaken and stirred by the frenzied spirit of these extraordinary years.
In the 1920s, Imperial Britannia is sliding from view, and modern Britain is stumbling out, almost like an adolescent, asking endless questions, a bit contemptuous of the past, trying everything new. The young called themselves the post-war generation, no idea that another war was on the way. And in this age of questions, if there's one that underpins all the rest, it's simply this: how best shall we live?
When news of the end of the Great War reached the streets of Britain, a massive, heaving party broke out. There were wild scenes for 3 days and nights, with drunkenness and even copulation on the streets. And at the centre of it all was David Lloyd George, the man who won the war. He'd had his share of scandals, but now he was riding high as he called the first general election since 1910.
Pledging a land fit for heroes, a new Britain of peace and prosperity, Lloyd George won by a landslide, a crushing personal victory for a man who was dodgy in private, but in public brimmed with plausible promises and sound bites. Now, we're not yet quite in modern Britain, but almost everywhere you look, you can find little flashes, glimpses of the more cynical and pleasure-loving country that we live in today.
A great new age of experiment had arrived in politics, writing, art, sex and drugs.
Nightclubs catered for a new urban scene, open to anybody with enough cash and a clean shirt front.
When the bright young things had tired of their latest party, they could go along to a club and shimmy, heebie-jeebie, do the camel walk or the black bottom into the early hours. And the queen of the night was a remarkable woman, known in clubland as Marr Merrick.
A respectable woman divorced by her husband, Kate Merrick said she went into business to pay for her daughter's education at Rodine. Merrick opened her first nightclub in Leicester Square in 1919. Soon celebrities were rubbing shoulders with new money and old royalty, refugee Russians and gangsters on the make.
The local gangsters targeted Merrick herself. One even beat her up for refusing him entry. And yet, her little empire of the night continued to expand. The Manhattan, the Little Club, the Silver Slipper, and many more.
In 1921, she opened the most notorious nightclub in Soho, the 43. If Kate Merrick was the face of the fun-loving 20s, then the round pink face of disapproval belonged to a man known without affection as Jix, Sir William Joynson Hicks, who became Home Secretary in 1924.
When asked what his job was, Jix replied, "It is I who am ruler of England." And now he developed an obsession with nightclubs. As Home Secretary, Jix had 65 nightclubs raided and prosecuted for breaking their alcohol licence. And he boasted in the Commons of having 48 clubs closed down. But Marr Merrick's 43 club seemed strangely and reliably and infuriatingly immune. At long last, the reason became clear. A senior member of the Soho Vice Squad was taking bribes to protect her. Finally, Jix got his hands on Mrs. Merrick.
Merrick was sentenced to 15 months hard labour, a physically and mentally shattering ordeal. But on her release, she went straight back to work. She was sent to Holloway Prison 5 times, but she stares boldly out of photographs with pride. And 2 of her impeccably educated daughters married into the peerage. But this kind of social mountaineering was only for a few. The vast majority of people lived and died as struggling underdogs. In the final days of November 1923 in Pollokshaws, just outside Glasgow, a former schoolmaster gave his only overcoat to a destitute immigrant from Barbados called Neil Johnson. Soon afterwards, the Good Samaritan collapsed from pneumonia. His name was John McClane, a hero in Soviet Russia forgotten here. Lloyd George once called him the most dangerous man in Britain. McClane's dreams of a better world were inspired by Marxist thinking and the Russian Revolution, and in Glasgow these dreams seemed about to be fulfilled.